So we have a few announcements for you guys. We have this coming Wednesday, next week. Hold on. At noon, we'll have the ICF South Florida We Empower Coaching Program. It's we're gonna have Dana Gold. She will be speaking on Stop Starting Over, the 3 steps to make a lasting change. So you can go ahead and register for that event. We also have group supervision with Paulette Rayo. She's an MCC. She's also a member of our chapter. And you're going to have 4 sessions of 1.5 hours. The dates are there. If you're interested, go to our website and register. And we also have on February 20th, the Barter Coaching Practice Lab. This is a very perfect experience for you guys, opportunity to practice. Those of you who want to have Fernando Celis, he's an MCC, and he can give you feedback and have the opportunity to coach or get coached. And this morning we have Dr. Zeina. Dr. Zeina is an MCC. She's an internationally recognized master certified coach, organizational consultant on well-being, and well-being scientist. She has 25 years of experience across the United States, the Middle East, and beyond. She's known for integrating emotional intelligence, positive psychology, leadership development, and evidence-based well-being practices to elevate human performance and organizational cultures. Dr. Zeina is the founder and past president of ICF Lebanon chapter and serves as the CEO of Embrace to Create Consulting, where she leads global coaching and leadership programs for corporations, government entities, and international organizations. Her work focuses on coaching mastery, emotional agility, resilience, and human-centered leadership. And welcome, Dr. Zeina. Thank you so much for your participation here with our chapter, and the floor is yours.
Thank you for having me. It's such a pleasure being here. I've been, I think, with you guys, I think a couple of years ago, and it was such a wonderful time where I talked about the flower model and some presents. It was really such a great encounter. So I'm so happy to be here amongst you. I'm calling from Pakistan. I have a health conference I'm attending and speaking at as a keynote. So it's a good thing Katya called me because I was mixed up with the times, and it's around 6:30 p.m. now in Pakistan, and the weather is lovely. It is not cold at all. And I look forward to these coming few days, which are really filled with physicians and my work with physicians that I did not really mention here in my bio, which goes way back to 2013. So, where I also have I co-created a company, a coaching consulting company, and a level 1 program with my husband, who is a physician, and we are published authors on physician coaching, because that is a field that is so much needed, as you all know, the healthcare industry, and it became magnified more even after COVID, and the need for helping physicians and the healthcare industry became even much more so. Since 2013, I do this work also in the United States. I do other kinds of work all over the Middle East, Africa, and coaching leadership and wellness is my niche. But before I kick off today, I would like to ask you, how are you feeling this morning, this evening? How are you feeling today? just in the chat box if you want. Oh, ready to roll? Okay. In the chat, if you can just mention how are you feeling, waking up. Expectant for today. Curious, pretty good, happy, excited to learn, doing good, looking forward to the day starting. Wonderful, excited. Yes, I've been very excited. This is my first time in Karachi, so I'm looking forward to experiencing a lot of people and a new culture. So I feel the same, and this is how I woke up today. So lovely being here and talking about a very important subject to my heart that has been going on recently, and that is, let me share my screen here. The human coach. As you all know, the human coach and how we are struggling with in the age of AI. My focus is going to be on well-being. It's going to be on emotional agility and the presence in the age of AI. But before we go any further, I want to be very clear about that this session is not definitely an AI training. And I'm definitely not here to teach about any tools, any platforms, any prompts, or any techniques. This session is more about us, our human presence. It's about what happens inside of us as coaches when the world is speeding up around us. It's about not as an idea. Human presence is not an idea. It is something we either protect or we are slowly losing, as you know. It's about emotional agility, not managing our emotions, but really noticing our emotions early enough so they really don't start coaching for us. And it's about ethical clarity. And by ethical clarity, I mean the quiet kind of clarity. The kind that will help us sense when a question is brilliant and still not the right question to ask. And finally, it's about what cannot be outsourced. No matter how advanced technology is. Everything we are going to do today is designed to be experiential. I will stop very often. I will invite you to notice yourself. It's about you today. We're going to reflect, we're going to practice, and sometimes we're going to do nothing at all. As I'm pausing now on purpose. If at any point you feel slightly uncomfortable, slightly slowed down, or slightly more aware than usual, that's not the problem. That's actually the work. So you're going to see me do a lot of poses. There is one kind of interference that is more dangerous than any other. It's not the obvious one. and it is not bias. It is not incompetence. It is not lack of training. The most dangerous interference is the one we no longer notice. AI did not change coaching. What it did, it was make something really visible for us. And we are not facing a skills gap. We are really facing a presence gap. I teach at 3 schools. I co-own another school in Dubai, level 1, level 2. I teach at the College of Executive Coaching in California. And I teach with my Vital Science, Vital Science group. And all the new students, any from Gen Zers to millennials to Gen Xers and even baby boomers, we are seeing that they are not having presence in the work that they are doing since the booming of AI. And most of us here are very skilled in what we do. We are skilled on how we listen. We know how to ask powerful questions. And we know how to reflect. We know how to challenge. We know how to refrain. Right? But presence doesn't disappear because we forgot how to coach. Presence is eroding because we are not noticing ourselves. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you finished a session and you thought, that was a clean session, but something was missing? Have you ever encountered this recently? Like, this is a clean session, but yeah, something is off. Yeah? Yeah. That something is rarely a skill that you're missing. The world we coach in rewards speed. It rewards clarity. And it rewards coherence. If you take a look at the image I have here, tell me what comes up for you.
What comes up for me is something very cold.
Cold.
Mhm.
Yeah. True, because presence lives in places that are very slow, messy, and very hard to measure. The more skilled we become, the easier it is to rely on a technique when regulation is required for us. So today, we're not here to add more tools. I'm not going to do that. We're going to be here to sharpen our ability to notice interference before it starts coaching on our behalf. And that begins really with understanding how presence collapses. And sometimes it collapses very quietly. I'm going to say this very carefully. I want you to read the title. Presence is a state, not a technique. It is not something you do better. It is not a technique. And it's not something you can muscle your way into it. That state doesn't come from effort. It actually comes from regulation. I will let that word land with you a bit. Presence comes from regulation. When our nervous system is regulated, presence emerges naturally. When it's not, no amount of skill can compensate. That's why sometimes you have 2 sessions with the same client, the same coach, the same competence. And one feels very alive, but the other feels very flat. Especially if you're a teacher in coaching and you see many recordings as much as I do. And I mentor PCCs and MCCs. Just for a moment, stop and notice where you are right now. Notice your breath. Pause for 5 to 7 seconds with me here. Notice your jaw. Notice your shoulders. And that's not a well-being exercise. That's a presence check. Because it requires a nervous system that feels really safe enough to stay open. When stress is high, what happens to our attention? It narrows. Our curiosity is going to shrink. Listening becomes very selective. And what we often call lack of presence is usually a nervous system doing its job. It's protecting us. This is why well-being is not a side conversation in coaching, and not for me specifically. It directly supports our capacity to listen, to wait, to stay ethical, and to not rush meaning. Let me ask you, and you can answer aloud if you want, and if not. When you're under pressure, what's the first thing you lose? In your opinion?
For me, it's focus.
Focus.
For me, it's patience.
Yeah, for me, it's patience too.
Yeah. What else? Curiosity. We lose curiosity.
And you lose stillness. You want
We
to
lose
react.
silence. Yeah.
I lose creativity. I can't think.
Yeah. So if presence is not a state, if presence is a state, not a technique, then the real question becomes what really disrupts that state before we notice it's gone. Let me tell you. I want to anchor what we're doing here very briefly in ICF language, without turning this into a checklist. Because the question on this slide is not a performance question. It's an identity question. Who am I being as a coach today before what I do? Who am I being as a coach today before what I do? This question quietly shapes everything that follows. Before the questions we ask, before the silence we hold, before the moments we choose to intervene or not. So when ICF talks about embodies a coaching mindset and maintains presence, this is what it's pointing to. It's not a technique. It's not structure. It is not performance. It's pointing to our internal stance we bring into the room. The stance that says, I'm not here to fix. I am not here to impress you. I'm here to stay. Just for a moment, if you can answer this silently. Who are you being right now as you sit here with us? Not who you want to be. Not who you usually are. Who you are right now. And there's no right answer. There's only awareness. So as we move on, I want you to keep this question with you. Because it's not something that we want to solve, but it's something to notice when presence starts to thin. And if you can recall the moments when you are with your coachee or your client, when these moments are thinning, I call myself a well-being person before anything else for a reason, because I started my journey as a dietitian. I have a PhD in bioscience and biotechnology, emphasis clinical nutrition. And then I went into another PhD of human behavior and counseling. And I always say physicality before psychology. And I do that for a reason. When we are sick, when we are not feeling well, physically, I mean, not mentally, physically, what happens to us? Where do we focus? We focus on our pain, our physical pain or physical ailment. Same when we are emotionally not well. Same when we are mentally not well. And this robs us of our presence. So many of my students ask me, Doctor, sometimes you cancel a lot of appointments. And I say, yes, if I'm not well, I don't coach. What does this mean? It means if I am not fully present and fully well with my client, to stay with them, to be in the moment with them, at least giving them 90% of my attention at all times, not looking at if my back is hurting or anything else is hurting, or if I have a fever and not focusing, or if I'm fogging because I have an autoimmune disease, or whatever. So many of us coaches have this responsibility towards ourselves before our coaches, our clients. So this awareness of where we are is very important, and this is how we align it with the ICF. Let's go a bit to neuroscience. I don't want to teach biology, but I want to explain why presence feels different when it's there and when it's not. Presence is not abstract. It does have a biological signature. When well-being is supported, several capacities stay online at the same time. Look at this list. And let's read it one by one. When we are well, we stay cognitively flexible, and we have the ability to shift our perspectives instead of being in one story or being locked into one story. When we are well, we have the ability to regulate emotions more easily, not by suppressing our emotions, but by staying in a relationship with our emotions. When we are well, we have the ability to have more reason. We can reason more ethically, with more nuances. And we are really better at truly taking another person's perspective. All of this depends heavily on really the medial prefrontal cortex. And the medial prefrontal cortex, it's the part of the brain, it's involved in judgment, in empathy, in moral reasoning, and in self-awareness. When we are stressed, this system does not disappear at all. It just goes offline. Which means something very important. When stress is high, our capacity to stay present is not a character issue. It's a physiological one. If you can take a moment and think of a session where you felt rushed, pressured, or silently tense. What was harder in that moment, listening or waiting? Were you able to identify that moment? Sometimes we go from session to session to teaching to. Just reflect on that. This is why well-being matters, well-being practices matter so much in coaching. Not because they make us calmer people, but because they keep the systems online that will allow us to stay ethical, to stay curious, to stay relational. And when we have our attentional control improving, we listen more accurately. When empathy accuracy improves, we interrupt less, and we have the ability to attune more. So when we talk about presence collapsing, we're not talking about, again, losing a skill. We're talking about losing access. So just have, if you want to scale yourself from 0 to 10 on your well-being now, in cognitive flexibility, in emotional regulation, in moral reasoning and perspective taking, where are you? 0 being very low in your well-being, and 10 being at the best that you can be. Just a small check-in. I am applying for my EMCC master credential, and in it, we do a lot of reflections. It's like supervision coaching, and in it, they help us a lot in understanding where we stand as coaches, which is something that I have been practicing for a very long time with my mentor and supervisor. However,
I think Zeina froze, right?
Yes. Did we lose her?
Yeah, I think we're gonna wait a little bit. She's probably coming back. We're gonna wait. I was saying that was a long pause. I was writing notes, and then I looked up and said, maybe I missed something. She can make it. This was so good. There we go. There she is. We're here.
I'm sorry. It seems Pakistan's internet is not as good as I thought it was. So I was asking you to take a moment to scale yourself on your well-being, and would anyone like to share? Or what practices do you do for your well-being?
I can share what I'm doing, Dr. Zeina. So I exercise at least 4 times a week.
Mm-hmm.
I think I do have a very healthy eating habits. Not that I'm perfect. I don't have any coffee after lunch, so I can sleep well, and I'm not using social media as much as I did before. I'm reading a lot, like historical
And
novels, classics, and that. So
wow.
it's been it's been a change for me, not being on social media, because that I lose sleep and I'm taking in things that are not good for me, that I know are not good for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I'm doing.
And how did this affect your coaching
Um,
and your
the
presence in the sessions, I mean?
In the sessions, I'm more focused on my client, because I think this is what I've noticed. My mind is not running like it used to be.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm calmer, and I can focus on the client more. I took
Yeah.
all notifications out of my phone. I have it in silence all the time. I don't have bubbles coming up. The only thing I have is the calendar, so I don't lose, I don't miss my sessions, but and I also journal a lot. So I think that has been a huge help.
Thank you so much for sharing. I guess I have one more question here. Is like, how do you detox yourself from negative emotions of the sessions? Do you talk to a supervisor? Because that's another part of a well-being.
You're asking me again?
Yeah, or anyone else. Because
Yeah, I talk to other coaches. I do have a coach that I see every month, and I think in my exercise I try to de-stress, and the journaling helps so much. Yeah.
I can contribute there. I have 2 supervision groups.
great.
And I think supervision is great for that. And it's especially in one of the groups we've been together for almost 4 years now.
Wow, that's amazing.
It's amazing. So it has this, and sometimes there was situations when something external happened, and all my clients came on that day with a lot of emotions. I could reach out to my supervision group in the middle of the afternoon and say, this, I'm overwhelmed with the emotions that are coming. Oh, okay. And so I have the supervision, I have coaching, and like Claudia, I go to the gym, and I like to go for a walk in the middle of the day. I have a dog, and my dog is kind of my reason to go out. So I go out in the
Therapy.
morning, in the middle of the day, and then in the evening. So just go for a little walk, and that is refreshing for me. Like take my mind away from whatever I'm too focused in a moment. So this is how
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing, Valeska. See, I work with a lot of physicians and a lot of physician coaches and a lot of coaches that actually and therapists that go through burnout. And I've seen that at the basis of many of these professionals is that they really don't have the time to take care of themselves, or they don't even connect with what they need to do. And they actually don't know. It could be nothing, like nothingness. I gave one of my physicians an exercise of just nothingness. Can you stay doing nothing like for 5 minutes a day? Like literally, if you're thinking like it's a nothingness, stop thinking exercise, not mindfulness, not meditation, nothingness. They're not able to. And this destroys the brain, all of us. And with what's happening now in the new technology, it's robbing us of this presence that we give also to ourselves and to our clients. Now, this slide looks very simple. However, it's really one of the most important ones because we don't lose presence all at once. It's something we spend and something we restore. So what depletes presence? And let's start on the left. Time, pressure, doesn't just compress schedules. It compresses curiosity. I started noticing it when my kids were teenagers, and I was a coach. I've been a coach for 20 years, and it was like when I felt pressured with time, I wasn't curious enough of what they're bringing as stories, or and this was a very long time ago. Role confusion is another quiet drain. The moment we slide from coach into fixer, into supporter, into advisor, into savior, even just a bit, your presence is being thinned. Emotional labor without recovery is also especially dangerous. Holding space sessions after session without space for yourself to discharge doesn't make us resilient. It actually makes us very numb. And when we over-identify with outcomes, that's when we start wanting something for the client more than they want it for themselves. All of this depletes presence, and presence will not survive that. Just notice, no fixing. Which one of these drains come up for you in your coaching? Time pressure, role confusion, emotional labor without recovery, or over-identification with outcomes?
Over-identification with outcomes. That's definitely something that's come up for me in my credentialing and supervision. I am sometimes too excited about. I just listen. I hear the goal and I just want it so much for the client, and that's. And sometimes it's not something I say, but it's in my body language.
Yeah. Now look at the right side. Now, what really restores presence is not doing more. It's coming back to the body. Somatic awareness brings us out of our head and back into contact. Psychological safety, both with ourselves and with the client. It allows openness instead of defense. What restores presence also is what we call values alignment. Because values alignment matters more than we admit. When our work reflects what we stand for, presence returns very easily. And of course, the recovery rituals that you were talking about. Not very big vacations, not resets, small, intentional ways of taking care of you. And in the session, small, intentional ways of closing one session completely before opening another in the day. I have one of my students that's doing back-to-back 10 sessions a day. I don't know what this is, but this is not coaching for me. And this is self-harm for her. So I invite you to look at these restoring presence skills or things that you might need moving forward. And remember, presence is not about being perfect. It's about knowing what drains you and choosing again and again what brings you back and what you need. These are not coaching questions. This is like an accountability check for you. What depletes my presence most as a coach? Not in theory, not in general, in your really actual lived practice. And we can name them, like Heather named hers very quickly. But you know what do we do sometimes? We normalize it. We tell ourselves that this is part of our job, that we should be able to handle it. And the cost of that normalization is that presence will start eroding without our consent. So if you can answer quietly what drains you before the session even begins, what drains you during the session, but you rarely name it. These are great questions for when you end the day. And what really reliably restores your presence? Not what sounds healthy, not what you might recommend to clients, what actually works for you. And you can write it down in your journal or wherever you're taking notes here. What it means to me, it's sustained honesty for you as a coach. Honesty about what drains us, a courage to protect what restores us. Going into emotional agility, I want to pause on this definition for a moment. Emotional agility is the capacity to notice emotions without fusion, suppression, or impulsive expression, and to choose responses aligned with values. That's a lot. I want you to think of this, not to analyze it, but to feel it. Emotional agility is not about being calm. It's not about being positive. It is the capacity to notice what's happening internally without getting fused with it and without pushing it away also, and without letting it drive the wheel. Most of us don't struggle with having emotions. We struggle with what we do too quickly once they show up. So if you can take a second and think of a recent coaching moment where you felt something strongly. Not good, not bad, just strong. Where did you move to? Did you move to suppression? Did you move to expression? Before there was any real choice? The agility lives in the space before that move exactly. Strong emotion, move. The gap in between is the emotional agility. It is the moment where you notice something is going on here. And you don't have to act on it. Where that pause is not passive, it is very deeply active. Because from that pause, we can choose responses that are aligned with our values. And this is what happens with the client. Not our impulses, not our habits. I'll be with you in a second, Francine. It's our values. Francine?
Hello, Dr. Zeina.
Hello.
I was wondering, I was thinking of a situation where, in the moment I felt maybe like my values were being impinged, like I was listening to something maybe that was very strong and there probably maybe there was an impulse expression, maybe my face or something. And then the opposite would be to suppress that if I wasn't going to show that. So I'm just wondering if when you feel like something against your values, how would you handle that without suppression?
I love that question. I love it so much. Okay. One of the techniques of entering our sessions is one of the moments that we talk about always is before we enter a session, we enter the session with intention and attention. You would say, for example, I will enter the session with love. I will enter the session with curiosity. I will enter the session with openness. And more than not, you're going to have clients that are come to you with values that don't align with yours. In the session, that moment when you suppress, yes, it's going to be suppression, but there's a big but here. You have to go back and process that. And this is what actually happens with supervision. You process it on your own, you reflect on it, You see if you can continue with the client or not. Because what you're doing is called transference. You're transferring your values onto the client. And you cannot do that as a coach. Or anyone in our industry cannot do that. Does this clarify it for you, Francine?
Yes, thank you very much.
Yeah. So I want you to ask yourself quietly, what emotion tends to rush you towards action in sessions? And it's usually something like what Francine mentioned. It is almost always aligned with your values or not your values. And since you are in this business of helping people, you're wanting to help people according to your values. So I invite you here to look at the value that you want to anchor instead at that moment. Because it's not about you, it's about the client. And as we move forward, I want you to keep this in mind. Emotional agility is not something you add on top of your coaching. It's really what allows your coaching to remain clean when your emotions are present. And this is really what actually differentiates us from AI and will always differentiate us from AI. Over Zoom or in presence or anywhere. There's this current, there's this energy, there is this that we need to look at. How much time do I still have? Because I still have a lot to give you, just to be mindful of
We
time.
have 30 minutes more.
Okay. I'm going to give you the 3 emotional modes. Are we okay? Are we all okay with what we're doing today? Yeah? Okay. I want you to look at this triangle for a moment. I don't want you to look at it as a framework, but like a map of what happens inside of us in real time. So most of us were taught that there were good, bad emotions, emotional responses. Now, this triangle is not about good or bad. It's about where we go when something is activated. If you look at suppression, suppression is not a strength. It's numbing. It's the moment we disconnect from what we're feeling so we can keep functioning. In coaching, it often looks like being very calm, but slightly absent. This is how it looks like. Let that sit a bit. Expression isn't wrong either. It's a release. But when expression is impulsive, it moves us out of choice. We say something, we react, we discharge, and then we can take it back. Agility sits here, not above the emotions, not outside of the emotions, at the bottom of the triangle, at the center. Agility is noticing. It is noticing what's happening internally and choosing whether, when, and how to respond. It's not about being neutral. It's about being available. When you are under pressure in a session, where do you tend to go first as coaches? Do you go towards suppression or do you go towards expression? Or do you catch yourself early enough to stay agile? There's no right answer, of course. There's only awareness. This masterclass is about awareness. Agility is not a permanent state. It's a moment by moment practice. It's catching these awarenesses. And it begins the instant we notice something is happening in me. The rest of our work today is about really strengthening the noticing, not eliminating suppression and not avoiding expression. It's about really expanding our capacity to choose. I was going to do a breakout, but we don't have time for a breakout. Where I wanted each person to share where they were and one moment, and that moved them there. And the listener only asks one question, and what did that mode protect you from? No coaching and no fixing. But I will send you the slides if you want, so you can reuse them, and you can do that exercise
We can
for
share
more
the slide.
supervision.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about triggers. This slide names something that happens to really all of us. Even when we're skilled, experienced, and well-intentioned. I don't know if you have it with your spouses or your partners or your kids a lot. You say, where is your coaching hat today? They would say, like, my husband would say, okay, where is your coaching hat today? So I think we all have the mastery and all, because we're humans. Because we do get triggered. And it doesn't really remove our competence, but it quietly distorts it. So when something in us gets activated, emotionally hijacked, presence doesn't disappear. I'm sure you're all familiar with the amygdala hijack. Do you know the amygdala hijack? Okay, so now it's no more the amygdala hijack. Now it's an orchestra of hijacks in the middle brain, where it's not only the amygdala that is working, it's a lot of places in the brain that work with the amygdala, just for so the terminology is no more used. So once something in us gets activated, emotionally hijacked, and this presence will not disappear, it will narrow. And our listening will become very selective. We start hearing what confirms our internal story, and missing what doesn't. Our questions become leading, not because we want to manipulate, but because we already know where we think this should go. Ethics become reactive, and we want to protect, we want to correct, we want to rescue, or we want to confront before we've fully stayed. And then neutrality will collapse. Not dramatically, in a very subtle way. I would like you to take a moment in time when you felt triggered in a session, not with close family or partners. And what was the first thing that changed in you? What happened? Did the change happen in the body?
This is Wendy.
Yeah.
It did. It actually made me like shut down first, and then I tried to just get into questioning, and I could find. I realized I was leading at that point with
Wow.
my questions, and basically it took me like out of the whole coaching and all on me. It was, I could just tell it was just like, because I wasn't feeling comfortable. And so basically what happened in the end was after a couple moments, I said, I'm going to go grab some water and I'll be right back if you don't mind. So that I could just do a few little breathing exercises and come back. And at that point, then I was able to take back on the call. But I did have to even just leave the call for a moment because I could see what was happening.
That's amazing awareness, though. And it's wonderful that you did not continue. Because usually what changes is either your body or your tone or your heart races or your curiosity will shut down completely. Your patience will dip. But the first shift is where awareness matters most, as you did, Wendy. Because once we notice it, we have a choice. And usually, it is either something that hits us with our values and shakes us to our core, or it actually will trigger a memory, a very bad memory. So when we have this awareness, it's great because once we notice it, we have a choice, like you did. You noticed you were leading, you went out, you took a glass of water, and then you came back. So being triggered is not a failure. It's being human.
I couldn't shake it, so I knew I had to get up. Was the way
Yeah.
I looked at it because and there was something on values, and it was like it just took me by surprise because I had been working with this client for a period of time already, and so it was like, okay, I was not expecting it, and that's why it affected me in the way it did.
Wow. So, as I said, being triggered is definitely not a failure. Staying unaware of it is where the risk lies. So the work of emotional agility is not about never being triggered. It's about really having the ability to notice the trigger early enough that it doesn't start coaching for us. And the research shows that the well-being piece, if it's ongoing and if it is being mastered on a daily basis, will help these triggers when they happen even more. Not only in creating the awareness, but having the ability, as I told Francine earlier, to to either suppress it just for the moment to be able to continue, but it will have a lighter effect in the session, but it needs attending later on. I'm sure you know the terminology, name it to tame it. And we know that this is very simple, but it's very important, because this practice comes from affect labeling research. In plain language, it shows us that when we name what we are feeling, the nervous system will start settling. So the amygdala activation starts to reduce. Here, the prefrontal regulation comes back online and shuts down the amygdala, which means, in our terminology, that you have choice. And that is not about calming down. It's about really widening the space we can think, listen, and decide from. Because when you are triggered in a session, something very specific is happening. A story appears. Often it's very fast. Often it's very convincing. And the practice invites us to slow down that moment. We shouldn't be analyzing it. We just have to name it. We often all talk about curiosity as if it's a mindset or a skill, but curiosity is not a state. And curiosity is actually a state. And like any state, it depends on our regulation. And as I said earlier, when we are dysregulated, curiosity will not disappear, but it will actually become very narrow. And it will only disappear because the nervous system wants to protect us. That's why curiosity cannot be forced. It has to be allowed. And this is why I love this question. What would curiosity sound like here? Notice the question. Doesn't ask us to be curious. It's asking us to listen for curiosity, as if it's already there waiting for safety. Being curious requires us to be safe, not disciplined. Because when we are safe, we're curious, we're present. When there is no safety, curiosity is replaced by what? By certainty. So I want you to think of a time in a coaching session when you didn't have any more curiosity. What happened in you just before that? Was it urgency, anxiety, concern, responsibility, fear of missing something? And because that moment will tell you more than any other technique. And this is why curiosity sits at the heart of listening actively. It sits at presence, and it sits in the ethical practice in ICF. It's not a behavior, but it is a regulated internal condition. And when curiosity is present, our listening is going to widen. When our curiosity collapses, our coaching is going to be narrowing down. This leads us to the human coach and AI. This is not an anti-AI conversation, by the way. I am all pro AI. It's a grounded conversation about what AI genuinely supports well and where the human coach remains irreplaceable. AI is very good at pattern recognition. It can spot themes, it can spot repetitions, it can spot language patterns, blind spots, faster than we can as humans. It's great with structure. It's great with frameworks, outlines, session preparations, follow-ups. It supports preparation a lot. Thinking ahead, organizing questions, reflecting between sessions. And it's powerful for cognitive offloading. It frees the mental bandwidth because when the mind is less busy, presence becomes more available. But do not mistake support for substitution. Pattern recognition is not perception. Structure is not attunement. Preparation is not presence. It cannot hold the relational field of coaching. AI can support the thinking of coaching. There is no need for fear language here because fear collapses curiosity. There's no fear refrain. And this moment actually requires clarity. The question is not, will AI replace coaches? The real question is, what must remain human for coaching to stay ethical, embodied, and alive? I will repeat that. What must remain human for coaching to stay ethical, embodied, and alive? So take a second and see really where AI can genuinely help us and notice what you would never want to outsource. And the next part of this conversation lives exactly there, at the boundary between support and substitution, between efficiency and presence. What AI cannot replace is somatic attunement, which means sensing what's happening, not just hearing the words. You can hear a breath or a pause or a tightening or a softening. That information never arrives at data. Also, humans only have the ability to look at ethical discernment and ambiguity. Ethics in coaching rarely shows up as clear rules. They show up as like a dilemma. They show up as moments where timing, power, impact, and restraint matter. So those decisions are usually embodied. They are not really algorithmic. Also, emotional resonance is only human. Resonance is not empathy as a skill. Resonance, it's the capacity to be with somebody emotionally in their reality without collapsing into it. And this requires us to be regulated. As humans, we have the ability to silence and pace. Because silence is not really empty space. It's active. It holds tension. It holds insight. It holds meaning. Knowing when not to speak is not something that we can compute. And the mean making is not pattern also recognition. It's helping someone connect experience to identity, to values, and to choice. And this process unfolds between only two humans. These are not skills we perform. These are usually capacities that we have to embody. So from all of these, I would like you to think about what is most central to your coaching presence and which one requires the most care now. This slide is about choice. It's not about technology. Because every age and era introduces tools that promise efficiency, and every era asks the same quiet question in return. What are we willing to trade for speed? And the humanity becomes non-negotiable at the exact moment it's convenient to outsource it. Not maliciously and not practically, not where AI can help, but where I personally feel relief handing something over. Listening, preparing, reflecting, emotional holding. Second question is, where does my humanity remain intact? In uncertainty, in grief, in meaning making. Humanity isn't threatened by technology. It should be clarified by it. Because technology shows us very clearly what only we can hold. If you can notice a place in your coaching where humanity is absolutely non-negotiable for you, write it down. I want to offer this as a practice, not a principle. Something you can do before a session begins, before the client joins, before you open your mouth, before you decide how this should go. These are readiness questions. First question is, am I regulated enough to be ethical? Am I present enough to listen beyond content, beyond the words? Am I grounded enough to not rush meaning? Imagine your next coaching engagement and think about that. The future will not remember how fast we coached, not how sharp how humans, how sharp our frameworks work. It will really remember how human we remained. Because speed is very easy to automate. Presence is not. And the work ahead is not to compete with AI. That's a losing game. The real work is to protect what AI cannot carry. Before I close, I want to invite you into one final reflection. Just answer for yourself silently. What is the one human capacity you commit to protect in your coaching? Not improving, protecting. If we can do that, then the future of coaching is not threatened, it's clarified. Thank you for being present with me today.
Thank you so much, Dr. Zeina. We only are asking all of you participants to fill out our survey feedback form. We also love to give our speakers your feedback, how much you liked it, what can we do in the future, and we're going to be closing out in just a few seconds. So thank you everyone for being here. Don't forget that we have another masterclass later this month. And Dr. Zeina, this was a beautiful session. So much, so many notes. I have like 4 pages of notes here. It's so good.
I will send you the slides.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I hope it will be of benefit for everyone. And
Sure,
thank you
sure.
for
We're going to
having me.
send it out to all the participants who registered. Yes.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Take
you so
care.
much.